This episode is brought to you by 6XD Gearbox. More on them later. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Minnoxide podcast. I'm your host, Harris, a.k.a. Minnoxide, man of many automotive aspirations. I'm here with my Ford-loving co-host, Dan.
Yeah, which works very well in this situation.
Yeah, not a single Chevy in here.
No, I like it.
No, it's Dan's leaving on a high note out of here today, so you're very excited. Nonetheless, today we are here with Justin Starkey of VMP Performance. And just tell us a little bit about yourself, how we got here today. And we'll just go from there. We talked a lot before we started the episode, so we'll get into all that.
Yeah. So we've been doing this for 25 years. Our 25th anniversary is actually like coming up in April.
Huh.
So I'm sorry. It's coming up in May.
Okay.
And I graduated high school. I met my wife at the drag strip, and I gave the business a name. I had been selling computer parts on eBay and then car parts when I saved up enough money to buy a Mustang. And then I graduated high school and I'm like, I got to give this thing a name, start a website, not just sell on eBay and the forums. And here we are today, 25 years later.
What does the VMP stand for? I'm sorry if that's out there somewhere and I don't know it.
It was on a test at one point.
Okay.
To like enter a contest. So,
okay.
But like it's out there, but not really. So,
okay.
This is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Velocity, Mustang, Performance.
Okay.
Okay.
So
that's not that dumb.
VMP Performance. So there's technically two performances.
Performance.
Yeah.
It's like what I used to call map performance.
Yeah.
Back in Minnesota.
It's like really easy to do if you're in this space, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
You got your first Mustang then. So what year or which generation would that be?
It was a New Edge.
Okay.
We didn't call them New Edges back then.
Yeah.
They've still an SN95.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a 2000 bright Atlantic blue V6 Mustang. I was the coolest kid on the block.
Yeah.
One wheel peel,
Yeah.
ran 16s. Like it was not that cool other than it was a Mustang.
Yeah.
So this drove me to make it faster.
Mm-hmm.
Peer pressure, right?
Yeah.
And so I did all the stuff you could do from like the JC Whitney and the Summit catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And made my own cold air, put an MSD on it, put plug wires on it. Yeah.
So at this point, are you surrounded by other car enthusiasts? Are you the only car enthusiast here, or?
We had a group of buddies in high school that had like Mustangs and Camaros and like the hot Hondas and stuff of the day. So
why a Mustang then? Because you had the F-body stuff was pretty popular back then, all that kind of stuff. What drove you to that?
Well, this is kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
The Chevy dealer did not have any Camaros.
Oh, that's all right. They don't now either. So
I guess it was a good.
Crazy.
Yeah, you probably chose correctly.
It was a good choice.
Yeah.
So then, okay, so you start modifying things. So when did you start tinkering with your New Edge then?
Like pretty much right after I got it, I ordered it because I needed time to save up more money and I wanted a color and just a certain combination of parts. You order a car, you save money, and you get what you want, whatever. So, so I think it was like I got it in like August, September of '99 as a 2000 model year, and
I was a month old, by the way, just for context.
Shit. Yeah. Sorry, I'm cursed.
Oh, don't worry about that.
And I think like I'm trying, like this is a little bit fuzzy. It's like an excellent question. Like PVC cold air, pretty easy to make at Home Depot. I probably saw that on like corral.net. Does anybody remember that?
Oh, I do. Yep.
Yeah. And went to the track with my friends. And like there was all kinds of like drama around this. Like my neighbor told my mom that I shouldn't go to the track because people just get drunk and fight in the staging lanes and stuff. I'm like, I don't drink and like I don't fight with people, so why is it a big deal to go to the track?
Right.
Did you see any of that stuff?
No.
Okay, yeah. It depends on the track too, though.
Yeah. Maybe if it was Yellow Belly, but
So you started attending the track then. So how do you and the business eventually progress? What does the next few years look like?
So trying to make this concise because I can talk a lot. I started making accessories for the car, and I started selling them on eBay because that was my outlet. And eBay was a new thing then. We were still like having people mail us money orders because PayPal like just came out in 2000. And of course we switched to PayPal. And I wanted to go faster. So it's like, man, and I like to make things. So I eventually, like, the holy grail for any 2000s kid, right, was like a Vortex Supercharger.
Yeah.
And I never actually got one. I got a Powerdyne instead. That's another story. But intercooling the Supercharger, I made like an intercooler kit for Vortex Supercharger V6 because there was none. And like I learned to weld and everything else and fabbed all this stuff up and was selling it to fellow enthusiasts. Like I only sold a couple of them, but I think that was my first, going outside of like the accessory stuff was fog lights. And I was buying takeoffs from Celine, making a wiring harness and selling it to the V6 people. Put fog lights, GT fog lights on your V6. So yeah, switch gears to performance. And I really kind of needed to like some time to mature in the space and like meet some people. So, and like learn and stuff. So, that was like the early phase and like graduating high school, meeting my wife at the racetrack and doing stuff with both of our cars. And then like a couple of years before things really got off and running. And like what that looked like is I built this car. I needed it tuned. So I met ended up meeting one of the founders, godfathers of Ford Performance and Tuning, Mr. Jerry Robleski, and having him tune my car at a dyno day. And, he was like, hey, why don't you learn to tune? And I'm like, well, shit. I didn't think of that. I'm like, I couldn't even drink legally yet.
Yeah.
And he saw this car that I built and, he's like, hey, why don't you get involved? And he's like, I'm starting a company. And ultimately I went on to work for SCT for a little under a year.
So, okay. And at this point, so you met your wife at this point. What does she have?
She's got a 95 V6 Mustang.
Okay.
So we were both nerding it out in our V6s.
Was the original, was it VMP at this point too? Like your Facebook, your eBay page, was that what it was then too, or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just like whatever your handle was.
Right. Okay.
And like, it could have been CPU coolers. It could be in Chivin. It could have been something.
Okay. Because I was born in 82, so I was there for
wow.
the induction of eBay and PayPal, and I still have my original eBay account and PayPal account from then. So yeah,
Nice. Do you ever sell anything on the eBay? Can you have a lot of stuff to sell?
I probably should.
I'll help you list some stuff. I'll take a commission. Okay, so then you start working for SCT at this point, and then how do things progress from there?
So I remember this. This is kind of a crazy story, and like we're past the statute of limitations and everything, right? So we can talk about this.
Yeah.
They said work for free for the first week, and we'll give you the software. Because at the time, it was like a $5,000 or $10,000 package of all their software, and it was the first of its kind in the industry. Like full end-to-end software with a chip solution to install it on the vehicle, and it was well documented. And it had a value file system, like a template system. So it was repeatable. And so I got that and I was learning the stuff and selling it and supporting it at the same time. And so once I ended up working for free for 2 weeks because I'm like, I'm not going to say anything about this. This is a really good deal.
Yeah.
And then they started paying me in chips because I was tuning in the evenings and selling chips on the forums to my fellow V6 brethren.
Yeah.
And and I remember Chris Johnson was one of the founders. He's still really prominent in the industry. And I would message him, I would email him because texting wasn't a thing back then. I'd email him and be like, hey, I left, $1,000 in your desk and I took, 10 more chips or whatever. Cause I was selling more chips than I could, earn.
Right.
So,
And this is all V6 stuff at this point, pretty much.
yeah. And you had like your oddball stuff. Like I remember the first car I dyno tuned was like a ZX3 Escort because some local guy wanted his car dyno tuned.
Yeah.
4-cylinder, 140 horsepower. And you know what? That was the first time like I got to kind of see more of the performance world. I rented a dyno at some Corvette shop. I think it's Corvette Masters in Longwood. I don't know if they're still around.
So you rented the shop from a Corvette place. You showed up with a ZX3. Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I mean, I had a V6, no shame.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Didn't let it stop me at least.
Yeah.
So, and the, yeah, I probably need a clip here to keep going. So ask me more questions.
Yeah, no, you're good. So you take the ZX3 there. So and what time frame is that roughly at this point? Like 2005, 6-ish or?
It's probably 03 still.
03? Okay.
Yeah.
So then, okay, at that point, though, now we got Terminators coming on the scene. Did you start dabbling with those at some point?
I did. I was a little bit more mature in my career. So, I mentioned earlier, I worked for SCT for less than a year. It was like 8 months. It was a rapidly growing company. Okay. And there really wasn't a place for an employee that was being paid in chips and working on the side.
Right.
Realistically, understandable. And they really supported me through my journey after I left the company. So that's all good. Mm-hmm. But that whole time I'd been working at SCT, earning a paycheck, making money on the side. I have been saving money. I bought my first house and I bought my first dyno in late 2003.
Wow. Okay.
So, but you can't put a dyno in your house. So I built a trailer for it in my 2-car garage. I'm like, man, this would be perfect. I don't want to like set the dyno up in some shop that I'm paying rent to or whatever and be stuck there. Let me just put her on a trailer. I can go wherever I want. Mm-hmm. And I bought some books. I talked to a guy named Dan Desio that built his own dyno trailer. And I'm like, I can picture this. I can weld, fabricate, whatever. Cool. So I did it. And the dyno was really that pivotal point where I had my own equipment I could tune on as long as I wanted to, my cars, customer cars, whatever, and really start to learn like the real craft of tuning.
Mm-hmm. And when you say learn, what does learning look like at this point?
Really making changes and understanding why they happen. You're on a dyno to look at horsepower, and that's your main measure of success. So, but you're also data logging. You're also measuring air fuel. You're measuring boost. You're changing things, getting the right set of components for the car to perform optimally in every possible way.
Mm-hmm. Are you getting some good gains out of stuff at this point? I mean, as things are going pretty good and customer base is starting to kind of fall in line, I suppose?
Yeah.
I'm not just saying that you sucked at it or anything, but I'm just, you must have been pretty decent at it at that point.
I didn't blow up cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, I wasn't real early in the game with the 0304 Cobra stuff. I was like 05, 06 is when I really started tuning a lot. But I say the thing about blowing up cars because there were a lot of Lightnings blown up and warrantied by Ford dealers. There were a few 0304 Cobras as well. So you can't run 29 degrees of spark in a boosted car. I mean, you can, but I don't recommend it. It's another story. So I was careful. I crept up on things. I had some great mentors in the tuning space. So they helped me understand the theory of it. And I was able to apply that.
Any to mention?
Really, Jerry Robleski.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think. And then, the racetrack that teaches you things.
Oh, yeah.
For better or for worse.
I just know we have a mutual friend, Greg Banish. So I didn't know if you had met him later on then or.
He came to my shop in about 06 and did a tuning class. And we've been friends since.
Okay.
And he's an incredible friend and mentor as well. Mm-hmm. But he was a little bit later. And I I didn't know back then, but I would need him for much more difficult stuff in the future. We'll get into that later. So
when do you first coin the website domain for VMP? I'm just curious.
Oh gosh. It's got to be 01 when I registered the name.
Okay.
So I found the paper, and it's in my office at home. I'm going to frame it, but it's the fictitious name registration for Velocity Mustang Performance. So,
and I didn't catch this earlier. Did you go to school or anything, or do you have a degree in anything, or?
No, I never learned to read.
Was it?
That didn't hit quite the way I wanted it to.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it sounds like you got out of high school and started a business right away and went from there. So,
I was kind of a failure in high school. I did really good as a freshman, and then I got distracted by making money on the internet. Mm-hmm. I had my freshman earth sciences teacher tell me, Justin, you totally aced the class. You could be valedictorian of your class. And like, okay, cool. I'll keep working at this. But the focus required to go through school, I was easily distracted by cars, girls, and money. So
when you get to a certain level in a build, whether it be drag racing or drifting, road course, or just a badass street car, you'll have to upgrade your transmission. And when we're talking sequential transmissions, there's no one on the planet with a stronger gearbox than 6XD. And the proof is in the pudding here, folks. Half the FD field is rocking a 6XD, and even 3,000 horsepower Vipers have not been able to tame the best that 6XD has to offer. So if you're ready to take it up a notch, go to 6xdgearbox.com, and when contacting them to place an order, use code Minnoxide5, or reach out via socials to figure out how one of the baddest transmissions on the planet could fit in your build. Let's get back to the show.
A lot of late nights on eBay. A lot of weightlifting was my first class my senior year, and that was a real easy one to skip, and they'd still give you a D because they didn't want to keep you behind. And which I love weightlifting now. It's probably better that I'm finding it later in life when I'm more disciplined and can stick to it. So I went to college for like 6 months or a year, and I did some classes, and just kind of the business and the family just kind of took off. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you're doing some fog light kits at whatever, when do we start seeing parts? So you're doing some tuning, and where are you?
So that came later, and about 08, and I'll tell you how I got there.
Okay.
Wait, there was one part before. I fabricated my own turbo kit, and I needed a mass air solution for the factory ECU. Like, and this is back in 01, 02, maybe 03. Like, you didn't put standalones in street cars.
Right.
It's like, you don't understand the world that we're living in now. It's just amazing. But so you had to keep the mass air. So I had a customer who had, and that wasn't even a customer yet. He was a machine shop. He had a local buddy with a machine shop. He's like, I can make that part for you. So I made them and I sold them. People on the forums and the website was a mass air flange to put the factory sensor directly in a tube.
Okay.
And that actually started a big part of our business, is the mass air housing, sensors, harnesses, etc. So that was the first part, but it really, I don't know, I don't count it as really significant. I had to spend some time in the tuning market and just kind of watch everything go on. And by 2006, there was a hot new Mustang on the scene that was factory supercharged. Anybody remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And local guy had one of these cars and sought me out on the forums. It's a 07 GT500.
Yep.
We hadn't been, since 04 Cobra was the last factory supercharged car. We had the new generation in 05, but no supercharged Mustang. So
yeah, this is Shelby's back in the picture now too.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like, I had been tuning 3 valves with turbos and blowers and nitrous and everything, and staying busy doing that. Doing 2-valve stuff was still hot back then. So I was seasoned as a tuner. Had my AFM 1000 wide bands, in my dyno, and was getting, doing all the data acquisition you needed to do to be successful as a tuner. Because if you don't have the basics, then you're just effing around.
Mm-hmm.
So 07 Shelby GT500, and I am the second person in the country to tune one. John Lund beat me by a week. So we ended up picking up 60 rear wheel horsepower on this 07 GT500, taking it from like 420 at the wheels to 480. And I remember I posted on no less than 30 forums an article with my dyno results. And like there were some like weird ball forums I posted on, but I'm just going to get the recognition.
Yeah.
So now where this goes into the parts side of things is I'm like, I need to buy my own car because this is freaking awesome and I can use it for R&D. So of course these cars were super hard to get back then. Everybody was paying $15,000 to $25,000 over sticker.
Oh, damn.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And this was late 06, early 07. So the economy was about to melt down, but hadn't yet. It's always the hottest right at the end, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, like one dealership had a car of every color you could pick, but they wanted 25,000 over. I was like, no way.
Yeah.
I'm doing that. So finally in May of 07, I found a car, a red with white stripe car.
Nice.
At a little tiny dealership in Paducah, Kentucky. No, it wasn't Paducah. That's the big city in Western Kentucky. It was a smaller city.
Yeah.
It was like an OG Ford dealer with a showroom that held 2 cars max. Yeah. And so anyways, the dealership had won the lottery and they had sold the car to one of their good customers. And I show up there and I'm like, okay, write a check for the car and then write a check to this guy because he's selling you his allocation, basically. I'm like, okay, cool. So for $51,000, I walked away with my 07 GT500 and started messing it with tuning it before I even got home. And of course, on a supercharged car, first thing you do is you tune it and then you change the pulley.
Yep.
And then you do, back then they had an air box still, so we had to change the air intake. So I found a local machine shop and I actually was at a party with the owner's son over the weekend. We designed a pulley and they made it for me. And my claim to fame back then was the stock look, but smaller because all these guys wanted to keep their warranty.
Yeah.
I take my car into the dealership for oil changes. I don't want to, don't want them to see any mods. So, and like in retrospect now, like we went to one size and then I'm like, let's go smaller. Okay, what are the material properties? How thin can we make this? How can we optimize every single element of the design to get as much as possible out of it? And so I consider that my first, like in 08, 09, we started doing pulleys for the Shelbys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you had an R&D car at that time, so that makes sense. Yeah.
I had the dyno set up in a shop.
Mm-hmm.
I was tuning there at the shop 2 or 3 days a week. And then I was doing email tunes the other 2 or 3 days a week.
Okay. All right. So then how do we get into superchargers now? Because that's not a small feat in itself either.
Haltech has once again pushed the envelope. Today we are talking GM. Sorry everyone else. At the end of 2025, they announced their new transmission interfaces for our GM listeners, which is a solution for those with 4L and 6L series transmissions. So whether you have a drift car, drag car, or a high-powered street car, you can finally rip out that rinky-dink, almost 2-decade-old OE setup and get set up with everything that a standalone ECU has to offer without the compromise. To learn more, go to tunedbysean, shawn.com to learn about how a Haltech can take your build to the next level. And while you're at it, check out the various plug-and-play solutions for your platform as well, including some install videos. As always, you can use code Minnoxide for 5% off. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah. So I kind of played around with the Shelby as much as I could.
Mm-hmm.
I I had a good friend who was like, hey, I think we can make a bigger throttle body for this thing. So I did the throttle body, I did the elbow, the tuning, the pulley. We didn't know yet how bad they overheated. We didn't know what other parts of the system could be optimized. So we just did kind of what you could see and feel. And you could get a real quick, a good gain on the dyno pretty quickly, and maintain drivability, durability, all those things the customers want. Because, you can't blow up cars. Like, people got to be able to enjoy their cars when they're modified.
Right.
So we did all that. And I get wind of a new supercharger coming out from Ford Performance, and contacted one of my longtime buddies I had met through tuning. He's still in the industry today. Great guy, Dan from DynoJet. I know a lot of tuners and stuff know Dan.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you know anybody at Ford? He's like, yeah, let me send you a couple email addresses. And I wrote up a sponsorship proposal. Now, I'm going to caveat this with, this is kind of funny. Paths cross. I also wrote up a sponsorship proposal. The sponsorship proposal I wrote up, and I said, hey, I've got this car. It's going to be on display at the PRI show, because I always have my dyno at the PRI show, and then you need a demonstrator car on the dyno. And, these are the deliverables. We'll run it on the dyno. People will see your product on my car. I'll do a plaque with the modification list and everything. And obviously on a dyno, they'll see the horsepower result, and I'm a good tuner, so it will produce good horsepower.
Yeah.
Sent this sponsorship proposal to Ford Performance, Whipple Superchargers, and Kenny Bell.
Okay.
And Ford Performance was pretty easy because I had the emails of the guys, but I remember I messaged Kenny Bell on SVT Performance, and they didn't get back to me for a while, and they had questions and stuff. And I asked Jared to ask Dustin, about this, and they were busy and didn't get back to me real quick. Ford Performance got back to me within 24 hours, and they told me what I needed to do. They wanted some other parts on the car that they were coming out with, some valve covers and some coil covers. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty straightforward. Let's do it. And that started our first jump into supercharged world.
Okay.
So, of course, they gave me the original Ford Racing TVS upgrade for the 07 GT500. It was they sold it as a package with calibration that was rated at 650 horsepower. And I remember when Shelby was building all the Super Snakes of that generation, they were putting it on the convertibles because that was the limit of the convertible chassis. And the coupe cars got a Kenny Bell 800 horsepower package. So Kenny Bell and Whipple were both in this space at the same time, and they had options, but they weren't fully flushed out. They had drop motor mounts, they had trimming of this and that, just they got it done, and which is impressive to begin with, right? But the Ford Performance solution was a little more of an OEM integrated approach with this new 2.3 liter TVS rotor pack. And we're like, okay, hey, we'll try this deal out. It's new technology, see how it performs. So, you want me to keep talking about this?
No, keep going. Yeah,
okay.
No.
All right.
Nice trip down history lane.
Yeah. So just like the factory supercharger on the GT500s, we, applied all of our tweaking to this one and learned, a lot of what was different as far as I just remember this to the day that the pulley is 1/8 of an inch difference. We had to make a different line of pulleys for those. And it was meant to go on a factory car with everything factory. So same throttle bodies, air intakes, elbows, all that stuff applied. And that's when we started to get into bigger injectors, more fuel flow, because now we really could move more air, so we need more fuel.
Okay.
Yeah. And I remember posting on the forums, I think I made 666 rear wheel horsepower, and everybody was real impressed by that. Yeah. And this is a car that made 420 stock, 520 to 550 with bolt-ons. So
yeah,
It's a big jump at this point.
Yeah.
What time frame is this at this point as well?
This would have been mid 08.
Wow. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. It would have been mid 09.
Okay.
And we had come out of the 03 Cobra heyday. All those cars made 600 of the wheels, and you had the more extreme ones that maybe made 650, 700.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But the Lightnings never made that unless they were really heavily modified with the cylinder head that finally came out for the 2-valve and stuff. And like,
I was gonna say, because the Lightning was still a 2-valve too, which is kind of disappointing.
Yeah. And like the turbo 3-valve and 2-valve stuff, like nobody was popping out 1,000 variable horsepower numbers left and right like they are now.
Yeah.
Like that really only happened over like the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was impressive. And I continued to modify that car into 2010. Long tube headers, camshafts. I remember doing a camshaft install article for 5.0 magazine with Mark Christ, and ended up making like 800 variable horsepower on a stock bottom end, just with 2.3 supercharger with all the upgrades and cams.
Now these, I always forget that those 5.4s, those don't have variable cam timing either in them, right? So they can, okay.
Yeah.
So now you're getting close, and you got the Coyote coming down the pipe now here. So
yeah. So a lot of things happened really freaking quick in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually need to write this down. In the background, my wife, I met her at the drag strip. We built several cars for her. She would drag race them when she could. She would help with the business when she could, but she was also going to school for her micromolecular biology degree and having our first kid in 07 and our second kid in 09.
So a lot going on at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the blessing of us being both really hardworking and really determined is like she would be working on schoolwork until like 2 a.m. and I would be sending out emails and tunes till like 2 a.m.
Okay.
So
what cars is she racing at this point? Because now this is years later, past the V6, I imagine.
Yeah, so we kind of retired the V6. We got her an 06 Mustang daily driver, and like back in 06, we were still pretty hardcore V6 people.
Okay.
And you got to remember the GTs weren't that great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
2-valve made 220 to the tires. The 3-valve made 280 to the tire. But a freaking LS1 Camaro made 300 to the tire and responded well to bolt-ons.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just like, hey, let's get a V6 and throw a supercharger on it. That's kind of our jam back then.
Mm-hmm.
So she had this V6 manual. We did a lot of stuff to that car. Vortec at 15 pounds. We did a TR6060 swap. Actually remember somebody that helped me out with some parts, custom one-off parts they made. And like, I was seeking out people like Paul Savinicki from Paul's High Performance and, Bowen, who actually passed away last year, Mike Bowen. Hey, how did you do this? And this and that. And, I'm just some annoying kid, right? Is how I look at myself. And they were, they would help me and give me tips and stuff like that. And we'd go and do it. So we built this 450 variable horsepower supercharged V6 for her. That was her daily driver. She actually had 2 kids in the back of it at one point when we had our second son. Mm-hmm. And my wife's 5'3", so like she sits all the way forward. So car seats and Mustangs go together great for her. Especially, yeah. So that's what else we were doing.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk parts again here. So you're doing like long tube headers and all this stuff. Where are you producing all this stuff at this point? Are you designing all this yourself as well? Is somebody helping you?
No, we're drawing on other companies, and like ultimately, we really only get into a part or component if we can add significant value above and beyond what the rest of the industry does. Mm-hmm. Everything we do, like it's got to be a better mousetrap. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm happy to use. Yeah, I remember I called up McLeod and talked to Red McLeod about a clutch for one of her cars, and he's like, "Yeah, we can make that." And I was using headers from my buddies at AFCO, the now defunct Dynatech brand, and so just whoever was out there. At that point, I was a go-to tuner, so I had a pretty big network of like people I could call.
Okay.
So then. Now we're finally getting into like the 2010 plus era. How are things progressing at this point? Do you have by the way, do you have employees at this point?
So, sort of.
Okay.
And all right, let me get you up to speed on this. I had my brother working for me. He was still like a teenager or something in the mid 2000s, making wiring harnesses and answering emails and shipping stuff. I had my buddy Brett working for me, and then like something happened, and it's just like my brother moved on, Brett moved on, and we're like, you know what? We're just gonna do all this ourselves. And I remember I had a setup in my living room because I was like remodeling the room in my house that was my office, and then so from like 08 to 10 or 11. I had no full-time employees. I just had helpers at dyno days. And oh, by the way, this mobile dyno that I built in my 2-car garage, we were taking it to every car show in the area we could find, because we would show up and we'd dyno about 10% of the show.
Oh, really?
And it was just cash in your pocket, and it was a marketing exposure for the business. So like Rebecca would sign them up. Me and the helper would strap them down and run them, give them their printout. Hey, you're making this much horsepower. And we'd do that 10 or 15 times a year. And
are you doing a lot of tuning at this time too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Day in, day out, living and breathing it. I don't even know what the numbers are. Like technically I have all the files from back then.
Yeah.
But it was easily, between updates and new tunes, I could have been slinging 20, 30 tunes a day by myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Quite a bit at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2010, let's talk about that year, because that was the year the Coyote was introduced. That was the year we had been doing a lot of these Ford Racing Supercharger installs and a lot of tuning. And, I would get them and I'd modify them for people. And I'm like, man, why can't I just buy them already modified to my specifications? And I had been talking to the Eaton Supercharger world is a pretty big world. It crosses OEM and aftermarket, and their new 2.3 TVS rotor, it was a competitor to the traditional screw rotors from Whipple and Kenny Bell. Even though it was smaller, it was very efficient. So I've been talking to Harrop, Edelbrock, Roush, and it was really hard to get into these big companies if you didn't have an existing relationship. So, this is silly. This is really silly. My caller ID lights up with Roush Industries. Somebody calls me from Roush and says, hey, I think we should be talking because there's this new Coyote coming out and we have a supercharger system designed for it. And I say, by the way, I've been trying to get a hold of you guys because I heard you made XXX parts for Ford Performance, which was a supercharger I got sponsored with. And I actually want to do my own version. Like, oh yeah, they said that, that program's kind of run its course, but we have some leftover inventory. We should talk. I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah.
So that was the start of having our own supercharger line. Oh, and then there's the whole other thing. I said, oh yeah, by the way, I want to put these 2.3 TVSs on an 0304 Cobra because I think it would be a good technology for that car too. And, I actually hand built and fabricated a couple prototypes with generic housings that you could buy from the supercharger companies at the time. So we had a working prototype and it performed well, as expected, because I had all the data from the 5.4 GT500. So yeah, a lot of stuff happened in 2010. That kicked off So we kicked off our own design and our own tooling for the Superchargers for First Cobra, and we modified existing tooling for GT500, and then we partnered with Roush on the Coyote.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're partner with them as in they're setting them to your specs, or you're rebranding onto buying them from them and selling them to your stuff?
So they started machining them to our specifications so they could take a bigger inlet and a smaller pulley. And then later on, we invested in our own design and tooling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess we can jump right ahead then, because this kind of works. So this whole deal that you've got going with Whipple now is not anything new to you. This is something that you guys have worked on deals like this before. And how did that come about then? Did you...
There's I've told the story privately quite a bit.
Yeah.
We had been... Let me give a little more history, because I know everybody wants to hear how did we start working with Whipple.
Right.
Because we had been, bitter competitors in the space for the better part of a decade. Mm-hmm. And, with the GT500 stuff, Whipple, let's go back to the GT500, because that was like our initial delve into really supercharging and modifying cars. Above and beyond just tuning. I'd get a customer car in, it'd be spec'd out, and I'm like, hey, this parts and components work good together. We tune it, we get them a result. So I always had that data, but I wasn't changing things like real time. Whereas with my own cars and my Superchargers I spent a lot of time on, I was intimately knowing everything I could about them. Mm-hmm. And I had been, I'd been tuning a lot of Whipple cars. I had worked with Jared from Lethal early on. He was very close with Whipple and tuned a lot of his cars. And, I've had Dustin Whipple's cell phone in my number of my phone for 15 years. And I called him once about something in 2010. We'd exchanged some emails or something. Yeah. And I actually found this email and sent it to him. He said, Justin, we should get a Whipple on that car. And, but yeah, through the teens, the industry got really competitive, for better or for worse. I played a part in that. And we had been really pushing the TVS technology, and Eaton had a good thing with the 2.3. They continued it with the 2.65, and they even tried to continue it further with a 3.3, which ended up morphing into a 3.1. And we went through several versions of the 3.1. And, Eaton's a great company. They produce a great product, but they've got their own little box they live in. Yeah. We all have to frame stuff, realities that we can deal with. And their downsides are they're traditionally a high volume OEM manufacturer. They're cost constrained. And, in the racing world, if you want to make more power, cost just can't be an option at some point.
Right.
The magic of being successful in the market is hitting that balance of cost and performance. And Eaton had it for a long time, and we ran with them exclusively through the teens and even into the early, 20s. So,
okay.
And where I'm going with this is we had tested the new 3.1 extensively. I think I showed you one on the floor over there. Mm-hmm. And ultimately the 3.1 is not successful, was not, and I don't believe will ever be successful in this space. The manufacturing limitations that Eaton has are just going to keep the 3.1 liter TVS from really being able to perform on this car and that Shelby behind you. Mm-hmm. It's not a high pressure supercharger. It is a high volume supercharger. And on all of these late model cars, they're small blocks, 5.2s, 5.4s. if you want to make a killer number, you need 30 pounds of boost. You need 25 to 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And I actually don't recommend running superchargers higher than that. So the TVS loses its edge at those higher pressures, and a bigger one, a larger displacement TVS doesn't fix that. Eaton's technology would probably be great on a boat, a steady state application. We found through extensive testing, it was better in like the 3,000 to 4,000 RPM range on some of the Shelby applications we tested.
Okay.
And we're going to get this about the TVS stuff. It wasn't torquier. It traded off. It just had a lot of trade-offs. It had, honestly, a narrower operating window than any supercharger I've seen that the 3.1 did. The 2.3 and the 2.65 are great.
Yeah.
And actually, 2.65 I think is the best. People say a lot about the 2.3 being torquier and this and that. I'm like, yeah, it's torquey, and then it chokes. And all of us want to go faster as the RPMs go higher, and the 2.65 does that for you. So enough about TVS stuff.
Yeah.
But that was important that we had really worked on and loved the TVS stuff, but it had hit the end of the line.
Okay.
And there were back in 2023, there were a lot of things going on. Whipple was rolling out new product constantly and hitting the market, and they were being successful, but they were having some failures. Mm-hmm. And we've obviously had our own trials and tribulations in the aftermarket space. When you're on the cutting edge, that happens. Mm-hmm. And I see Dustin getting beat up on the internet, and I pull up in the driveway at home. I just pick up the phone and I say, "Hey, you're doing good. Your responses are good. You're not arguing with people. Mm-hmm. You're doing great, man." And he's like, "Thank you. I'm just trying to do the best I can." And we ended up talking for an hour. And, just kind of ended the call with like, "Hey, if you ever need anything, I'm here." And that had been after a long course of, arguing on the internet with your competitors.
Yeah.
Saying some things I'm not real proud of.
Well, I remember all through that S550 stuff, it was like Odin or Whipple, and it was like those were your options, So yeah, it was going back and forth.
So, that phone call was really early in 2023. And it didn't really go anywhere, but I think it laid the foundation for, hey, we're just people, doing what we're passionate about. And, at the end of the day, there's probably more commonalities than there are differences. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we get going towards the end of 23, and one of our former employees that we're still friends with actually gets a job at Whipple, and it's Chuck Harder, and things had further developed with the new Mustang. More details were coming out, and our relationship with Magnuson had really been going through a lot of trials and tribulations because of the 3.1 failures, frankly. And there were certain things they wanted that we didn't agree with, and they wanted to go a different direction. So we started talking to Whipple, and found out there was a lot of mutual respect there. And from an engineering perspective, and providing the best possible product to our customers, found out Whipple was working on a lot of new stuff. Found out they had addressed their quality and durability issues. And with the Gen 6, found out they also had a better mousetrap. So we were really keen to that. And, we had always clung to the TVS stuff because of the broad power band of the 2.3, and then especially of the 2.65. It was torquey, and it could flow the air and make the power. Mm-hmm. And Whipple had always been able to hit, part of that, but have some trade-offs. Well, they're new. And like, this is something that's not really talked about in the Whipple space because it's the same displacement, but a 3-liter Gen 5 versus a 3-liter Gen 6, totally different animal. And that's what really sold me on partnering with Whipple.
When you say different animal, do you have any specific reasons?
Yeah. So they changed the rotor profile on the Gen 6.
It's kind of like, so I have a Gen 4 on my car, right? So, but that was technically a Gen 3, but it had a different rotor pack, I think is what it was. So it's a kind of a similar situation, I would assume.
Yeah. And like, I'm going to say that, and I don't think Whipple's ever come out and say this, but I know all the design and engineering attributes because we design superchargers here.
Right.
The Gen 6 is actually a longer rotor pack by 20 millimeters because they worked out the length over diameter. And that's one of the critical factors you manipulate to make a supercharger efficient in the range you need it to be.
Mm-hmm.
You've got air coming in and you can either blow air and just pump it, or you can compress air at a high adiabatic efficiency to do it without a lot of drive losses. And I can get more into that later because I don't know if that really made sense. But where I'm going with this is that like your 2.9s, I think like a Gen 2 through a Gen 4 2.9 liter, I think they'll all fit in the same case.
Yeah.
The Gen 6 is actually a new case, improved durability due to case structure, and greatly improved adiabatic efficiency due to the rotor design.
Okay.
And what this means for the average Coyote person is the boost comes on hard. It hits hard. I actually think that the 3-liter Gen 6 is well matched to the Coyote's airflow requirements. It makes more torque than a 265 at the same boost and the same RPM. And you will hear all the TVS proponents talk about this stuff, about how torquey they are, how hard they hit. First of all, I don't care about anything below like 2,000 RPM. Like you're not really using an engine at that point. 3,000 on up to the Coyotes 7, 8, 9,000 RPM rev limiter. That's what you're using. So the Whipple stuff comes on. It's solid. It makes good power, and it carries it all the way to the end. And I know from all the testing and development work we've done that, you have to hit the right profile, and you have to avoid expending too much energy to drive the supercharger. So when we started doing, first of all, Whipple told us the results of the Gen 6, and then we started doing our own testing. And really, that's what's on this car. That whole design compounds everything from the inlet, the intercooler setup, the rotors. They all work harmoniously together to make a lot of power.
Okay.
And at this point, we're, if you can make 30 to 60 more horsepower at the same boost level without having to change fuels, without being harder on the engine, that's a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Coyotes are already making the most power per pound of boost compared to every other Dodge and Chevy out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the upper end of things, we were pushing the TVSs to like 1,000, 1,100, 1,200. We had some really crazy builds make like 1,300.
You're probably going to need to ship your car soon, or know somebody that will. And as someone who used to work in freight logistics, I understand the difficulties of finding reliable transport, especially when trying to make it to rallies, racetracks, or to warehouse to hide your Corvette, because you're going through a messy divorce, and when she says everything, she means everything. Anywho, Nick Shearer is the proud owner of Sure Thing Logistics. Having traveled much of the country with every type of vehicle you can imagine, he's got the experience and reliability that you want to ensure a safe journey for your pride and joy. If you want to find out what it takes to ship your vehicle, go to SureThingLogistics.net, fill out the intake form, and be sure to let him know I sent you. Let's get back to the show.
The Whipple Gen 6 stuff can do that and a little bit more. It can do it without overdrive balancers, because it takes so little power to drive, it can get there. It can get farther with a 6 rev belt before having to go to 8 and 10 rev and stuff.
Okay.
So, Yeah, that's the engineering side of it. I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, what I got from that is you were working with Eaton and you basically just switched suppliers is what you did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not a new thing in this industry where people are, putting their own spin on stuff and whatever. And Eaton is a giant corporation. They make manufacturing equipment and all kinds of stuff. So, they kind of specialize in superchargers. So I think
it was like a natural evolution,
right,
for our goals, for the goals for our customers, for our racing programs, for performance,
right,
and people love their cars so much. When you come out with something better, they'll buy the next generation of it.
Yeah.
And, I think it's important to be able to continuously disrupt your own market, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But okay, so let's go into, because what you guys do, I think very well, is all of the stuff around it as well. So you're very big. We talked about cooling, things like that. Walk us through the R&D of some of the stuff that you guys see that are lacking, and where we go from there.
So, the whole thing about engineers at big companies are arrogant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When the 3.1 TVS, the first version, didn't work, we were told that, well, something else is wrong with your system. Your throttle body's too small, your pressure drop across your intercooler's too high, your whatever. You've got a cork somewhere. So that, I had already started to dabble in that, and that led to the partnership with PWR to develop better intercoolers. And the first one was for your Shelby, your new generation 2020 Shelby. So we developed an incredible test rig on our chassis dyno that rivals some engine dynos for supercharger testing and evaluation, like pressure drops, temperature, pulley speeds, everything, so we could test intercooler designs. And you're working day to day, right? Mm-hmm. But if you don't make time for R&D, then you have no future,
right?
So in retrospect, I'm looking at why did this take so long? But yeah, so the TVS stuff and the feedback from Eaton drove us to, we were already good on the throttle body side, but it pushed us further. But the intercooler is something that, all these Cobras and the older GT500s we supercharged, we just never touched the intercooler. Mm-hmm. And if I recall, there were very few people there was maybe one or two in each market segment that had an aftermarket intercooler, and nobody really knew what it did or if it was better or anything else. And that's really where I forced myself to learn about the intercooler and how to make it better. It's an integral component of the supercharger system.
Yeah.
If your intercooler flows too much air, and you can see through it very clearly, it's not going to pull any heat out. Mm-hmm. And then, conversely, if it's too restrictive, the pressure drop across it is too high, and your supercharger is working that much harder. And, every pound of boost from a supercharger takes, 10 or 20 horsepower to drive it.
Yeah.
So you want it to have to do as little work as possible. Mm-hmm. So we ended up developing intercooler upgrades for the Shelby and the older GT500 first. And those technologies work a little bit differently, and we're actually homogenizing that with some new parts and new offerings that are going to happen this year. But I first did cores, then I did lids, and the lid thing took me way longer, late to the game with that, but we've been very successful since. I think you have one for your car.
Well, you must have sold a lot of Apex Predator lids though, because I feel like I see them everywhere. There's a lot of people that have them.
Yeah. I just ordered another 200, and I think we're about 450 in at this point.
Yeah.
In the field, plus whatever we're going to sell this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty cool that your creations are adopted by the market.
Yeah. Well, when I switched out my intercooler core, when you put, I saw your videos, and then you put the two next to each other, and you're like, holy crap, it is a huge difference. So,
and yeah, and it's funny because things ultimately develop a life of their own. You know, our competitors said it was too restrictive. It had higher pressure drops. And I'm like, wait, it's engineered for lower pressure drops. And the data says that's how it works. Oh, you're just talking shit.
Yeah.
So,
well, welcome to the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we got to get a little bit insight on, so hopefully by the time this episode airs, I'll drop our tour with AMS Performance. But we went over there, and when we were talking to Martin, like they censored the shit out of their car. Like I think it's like they get like a Motec whatever the thing, and I think every time they switch cars, it's like 19 sensors, and they're measuring all these pressure drops and all that. Like it's a crazy setup, and it's like same thing you're talking about. It's like, oh, well, these people are saying it's worse. Well, when you have a consistent way of testing the data, it's like, oh, this is a significantly better product. So I'm curious, what do you guys do for testing here to make claims like that?
So, you know, on that lid and intercooler development cycle, we were using spacers as thin as 1.5 millimeters to, and we had to do 3 pulls back to back and have them in the same weather conditions and have them repeat. So that meant setting the car up for a morning of testing and, you know, being able to do it like all in a morning before the afternoon heat came in. Because you can correct for weather changes, but it's really not a good idea. So yeah, very minute changes, and that ultimately proved out the technology in the lids, which we've applied for a patent on it. So yeah, and like it's essentially pressure is the big thing, and then horsepower is how we proved out that system.
Okay.
And yeah, if you have a GT500 and you don't have it yet, it was a very easy, like it was an affordable, like I'm surprised that there's more people aren't just doing it, because it really wasn't, the price point was good and it was a super easy install.
Yeah, and that's like one of our goals, right? We did a 2nd generation lid recently to use some space that I had originally ignored, but there was a ton of 3D printing installation trials to make sure that like the space can be there, but if you can't install the part because there's something you have to work around, then you know it's no good. So yeah, and I feel like there was something I was missing on that.
And well, also, so you said you work with PWR. I talked to them at is it PRI or probably PRI, and I think they make Palm Beach Dyno's heat exchanger, and they supply for the OEMs. Basically, if you have an intercooler or something out there, they probably make it for about everybody and anybody.
Yeah, they're a very premium supplier. I think CSF.
Oh, maybe it was CFS. That's who I talked to.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And like I developed a special relationship with PWR very early on. One of the engineers there, we really connected and were able to iterate a lot to get to the best design. Yeah. And they make everything right there in Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be another good one to meet with their current head of engineering, Hayden.
Yeah, I don't know what to develop and build things like that. That has to be that seems intense. There's a lot going on there.
And the crazy thing is, when we first started working with them, they were flying the parts in from Australia, and they eventually brought all the manufacturing stateside.
That's cool. Really?
Thank gosh, right? With all the tariff drama over the past couple of years. And they do batch brazing in these specially designed furnaces. Like with anything, there's a lot to make and stuff and figuring it all out. You know, the only downside is they're a very premium product. So, you know, I made the decision to offer a street line of intercooler cores that are more affordable, and then a race line for people that want all out performance.
Yeah, I didn't, I don't know. I'm just, if there's a bigger one, I'm going to get that one.
Yeah. And actually, like, we actually have carbios on some of our intercoolers as well, and we'll get them for all of our intercooler cores eventually, because they don't negatively impact emissions, but we have it on some of the original ones because we were doing a batch of carbios.
Well, let's talk about that for a second then too, because you're an active member with SEMA, right? So you kind of, you have a part in helping with the lobbying and all that stuff for that.
Yes.
Okay.
They have been gracious enough to listen to me and take my opinions and put me in front of Congress people and officials and, talk about like what's really going on in the industry. And the truth is, like, over the past 5-10 years, we've seen a lot of disruptions that, if not handled, could very easily put people out of business.
Right.
It's shops and small manufacturers. They can't afford to have, mistakes or overnight legislative changes that hurt their business. So that's kind of like that. I think I was talking about it before we started, the mentoring and the protecting the industry and kind of trying to look out for the future that my wife and I have become really involved in.
So what does that look like throughout the year?
So I volunteer on a SEMA network called ETTN. And I also interface with everybody else at SEMA, from their president to their DC lobbying organization. And I say their president, their CEO, Mike Spagnola, various board members. What SEMA, like, it's easy to look at SEMA and just see the big flashy show and all the money and the dues and all these things and say, what do they do for me? But it's my opinion, you really need somebody like SEMA in the space to, take the concerns of the industry and lobby for, better stuff. Lobby to not get crushed by the, frickin' whatever DC's trying to do that minute.
Right.
Because listen, it just changes from administration to administration.
Yeah.
And we were able to reverse some of the stuff that the last administration did, which was great. Rebecca and I, flew to DC early last year. And the SEMA staff, right, they're lobbyists. So they walk into a senator or representative's office, hey, I know we do the same thing. You could be sitting in my position next week if you get a job over here. So they bring people like us who are really on the ground, working in the industry every day. And we can talk about the issues that affect us and how, this legislation may hurt us, how there need to be some changes. So, it improves the situation for us, or at least maintains the status quo. I think all the car guys would just prefer to have the status quo, keep doing what we're doing. Let us do this. But the world gets all kinds of crazy ideas and thinks they need to do something about it.
Yeah. We talked a little about the electric car thing too. So yeah, look what they did. Those companies are big enough to probably take the hit, but a lot of them invest in billions of dollars into these EV programs. And then it was like, oh, never mind, our bad.
Yeah. Product people didn't really want just being shoved down their throat.
Right.
And we should have let that happen. I don't know. I don't want to talk in absolutes. I'm okay with technology.
Yeah.
I started out in computers, and then I was a computer nerd, and then I became a car nerd, is what I say. New technology is good, but just don't force it down people's throat.
We've talked to a lot of you tuners. You guys are all nerds. It's fine.
Thanks for being so accepting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is like Dan mentions, the big companies can take the hit. They could just write it off over 10 years and, they got all this money coming in. But when you're talking about guys that got to pay rent today, it's a very different story. And, we're not talking about small, 5-10 man shops, but when you get to kind of around your size, or, when you're putting out a ton of products, where you're kind of more visible at this point, right? Yeah. Especially with all the EPA stuff and all that, especially in the last 10 years, it's been so crazy. Is there anything that you've kind of seen that has been prevented? For example, oh man, that was a close one.
People are very critical of SEMA, and I think I always think there's room for improvement, but I think we have to look at the good things SEMA's done. they first uncovered some rulemaking by EPA back in 2015, some rules and regs that were snuck in there. And, the way this works is there's a law, but the different areas of the government still have to decide how they're going to carry out that law. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of liberty to decide that. And SEMA's given the EPA a ton of pushback. And, we're seeing that come full circle to where, like, when we got the Advanced Clean Cars 2 thing crushed by the EPA, like, the EPA did not approve it. SEMA's leadership actually got invited to the signing ceremony at the White House. We've got a favorable administration, obviously, to business. Republicans are favorable to business, and like they're supposedly less favorable to the environment, but it really shouldn't be looked at that way. Like, we're all still for the environment. We're just being reasonable about how we get there. So I think SEMA's work in DC has just continued to accelerate, and we're going to have more and more successes there.
Do you have examples of people being critical? Like, everyone, like, I feel like if you're not involved in the know, it's very easy to make an outside judgment. But do you have an example of anybody being critical?
There was a lot of disappointment the RPM Act wasn't passed.
And what was that specifically?
Recognition and Protection of Motorsports Act.
Okay.
SEMA created this, bill, and then worked with different legislators to get it, passed. And ultimately they did not get it passed, but I think it really set the tone that our industry was willing to fight. We were not just going to take, EPA oversight, lying down. And I mean, for those that don't know, EPA was coming into mom and pop businesses saying, what are you doing? Give us all your records. We believe you have violated the Clean Air Act. You owe us this much money. We might negotiate it down if you have an ability to pay. If you only have an ability to pay so much. But it was very heavy-handed. It was not in the spirit of, like, working together. EPA is supposed to provide compliance assistance, not only enforcement. And I think just trying to enforce against mom and pop shops is just ridiculous.
Oh, so rather than doing just kind of like a slap on the wrist, like, hey, stop doing that, it was just like, all right, now you're in trouble sort of deal?
Now you're in trouble. You owe us $1.5 million.
Okay.
So.
That happened to our Texas buddies, remember?
Sorry, I'm trying to think which Texas buddies.
GM. Motec. I could say it, I guess, whatever.
No, it's fine. Anyways, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I mean, their APA settlements are public record.
Oh, okay.
So,
well,
one of the things I heard in a podcast we did probably a year and a half now at this point was, now one of the things you mentioned is like basically like, okay, right now this administration's a little more friendly towards, car guys and whatever business and such. One of the things I heard, and maybe you can kind of give some insight into it, is under the 2016 to 2020 administration, from my understanding is like they pulled funding from the EPA, and as a result they kind of had to like get their own, like basically start going around fining everybody to get themselves paid. Have you heard that before? Is there any merits to it?
They pulled funding, and there was a group of the EPA that was very much like, well, we're going to go after whoever we can go after. I honestly don't think it's profitable for the EPA. The most recent settlements they had early last year were the first big ones I've seen in years.
Okay.
But during the first Trump administration, the EPA was just angry, and a lot of things had happened leading up to that.
Okay.
And somehow the administration did not keep a good eye on them. And I think Trump's trying to make up for that now, frankly. But and listen, I'm just some guy who's been watching this for 25 years and who's gotten a little bit involved. No, and
that's why I wanted your opinion on it, because like, again, we talked to a lot of people around the country. I'm involved in a lot of the forums. So I'm just curious because, like, again, you're on the forefront as in actually talking with these people and being involved with SEMA. It's not, you're not a regular guest to us in that sense, I suppose.
Yeah. And listen, my association with SEMA as a volunteer, as a consultant, they can tell me to get the fuck out of here at any point. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But I guess I can talk about our accomplishments and why they're significant.
Yeah.
We got contacted by the EPA in August of 2015.
Okay.
And
how long have you been a volunteer and working with SEMA, by the way?
You'll find out here in a second.
Okay.
So they knocked on our front door, talked to my wife, who was holding one of our young children at the time, asked if her dad was home. She tells the story way better than me. But, then they asked they thought Justin was her dad, because they're looking at corporate documents and website addresses and shit like that. So I ended up coming over from the shop, which at the time was next to our house, didn't look like the house or anything like that, and talking to them for an hour. And just in circles, they wanted to know what this SCT tuning software I used was, and if I was trained properly on it and all this other shit. So that really started their major crackdown in August of 2015. And like, we were tuning gas engines at that point. We were supercharging them. And of course, I'm scared shitless. Federal government walks into a business that's 5 employees and $2 to $3 million a year.
Right.
This is not something we normally do.
Right.
If you're ExxonMobil or whatever, you have a whole team of attorneys that deal with government regulation.
Yeah.
We didn't. So turns out 3 other shops in Central Florida were hit that same week. We talked, we hired attorneys. I regret that we did not work together more.
Work together as in the shops or EPA or
the shops?
The shops, okay.
There quickly developed a stigma of who was doing worse shit.
Okay.
But, and that's something that I regret now. We should all act like adults and decide the stuff we're going to do and not going to do. There's like, you can have performance and compliance together. But it was just So what I'll get into the SEMA stuff is that we had been growing to a point where we were like, okay, we should be doing emissions testing. We should be doing CARBOs. Let's figure this out. I had actually engaged a lab in California in 2014 to start doing some engineering and testing for me.
You're talking about Diamond Bar?
This was a private lab.
Okay.
I forget the name of the guy that runs it, but So fast forward to the end of 2015, I said, a couple people said, hey, you should call SEMA. So I call SEMA. I get on the phone with their attorney and their compliance guy. They're like, hey, we've just opened a lab in Diamond Bar, California. Okay. And, and I said, okay, well, I want to test one of our supercharger kits and calibrations. And like, this is the thing. You put like a cold air on a car, like you're adding like 10 or 15 horsepower. You put a supercharger on a car, you're adding 200-300 horsepower. And you're doing this dance of making the car run right with this much more boost, this much more power. You're usually doing bigger injectors, you're doing bigger air induction, bigger throttle body. And at this point, extremely skilled in calibration, had been doing this for 13 years, 12 years, since 2003. And wanted to try my hand at emissions calibration. So we ended up going to SEMA Garage with a 2012 or 2013 Shelby GT500 with, at the time, our latest generation was our Gen 2R supercharger, and proving that we could modify this car, make more horsepower, and keep the emissions within the standard that the vehicle was originally certified for. You'll hear me talk about that with emissions compliance because the government grants the vehicle manufacturer a VIN number, and a certificate of conformity to basically allowing them to sell that car, but they have to meet certain rules and regulations. And there's different tiers and bins that cars get grouped into. So like the Shelby behind you, started being sold in 2020. It was actually really clean from the factory, but it was in a pretty, it had a lot of room where it could still fit into the category it was originally sold for. So, you actually had a lot of room for variability and just different things. Like it certs at like 66% of the standard. You want to be within 90% of the standard. Why you can't be within 99% of the standard, I don't know. That's another problem with California. Like the government has taken their rules and said, well, you need to have some buffer room. Well, why wasn't the rule that to begin with? But we'll get into California here in a minute. So yeah, we got contacted by the EPA within, 3 to 6 months. We proved we could modify a vehicle without increasing the emissions on a very high level. And the EPA did not give a fuck. They said, we are investigating you for tuners, not for superchargers. I have that email and I would use that later. But at the time, it's just like, how do I make these people happy? Right? There's a game.
Yeah.
There's rules. You're willing to play within the rules and it's still not right. And, I think that EPA was still feeling out. So this is how they learn, is they investigate people, get records in, look at connections. It's like feeding AI data. Yeah. And they were really upset with SCT for selling all these tuners, often to people deleting emissions components on diesels. Mm-hmm. Like we talk about the biggest way to make a horsepower increase or an impact on a gasoline car. Well, the biggest way to make a negative impact on diesel emissions is to remove all the equipment that recently became government mandated, as recently as 07, 08. So they're investigating that. And like, ultimately they strung out our investigation for 4 years because I think they wanted to settle with SCT before they settled with us, which is another huge problem. We should have been looked at on our own. Yes, we sold SCT tuners. That's what it is. And, but we were willing to, we proved we could, take certain steps to comply. So,
there was a shop that I dealt with down here. So I have diesel trucks as well. And I don't know if you're familiar with Vivian from Quick Tricks. From what I understand, they raked her through the coals pretty bad for that. I think they took her in front of judge and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that was kind of sad.
I've heard stories and stuff, and yeah, I've heard it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that happen to us, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to downplay, but yeah, it's a pretty bad thing to do to the industry.
Yeah.
And I think SEMA really had to learn how to respond. And even like they helped us by having an emissions lab that was friendly to the aftermarket, making testing available at a reasonable cost, all this other stuff. And like the EPA still didn't care. So like, I guess that's where like one of the things where like, you can't blame SEMA for that. Mm-hmm. Now they have figured out how to talk to the legislators and say, hey, we have a process for the aftermarket to comply. We want you to recognize that process. Mm-hmm. And that's like the next thing on the table.
Mm-hmm.
When did that process start coming on board?
SEMA certified came about in over the past like 3 to 4 years.
Okay.
So, there's some regulatory hurdles. And like, I can't talk too much about this, but SEMA's got a lot of good long-term goals of making compliance solutions available to the aftermarket. I don't believe they're the end all be all. Like we were talking outside, the impact that the performance aftermarket makes, a lot of these cars don't get driven much. Mm-hmm. I'm still interested in protecting things like drag and drives and just like the right to modify your vehicle.
Yeah, that's what I always think about. Is like, yeah, the drag and drive guys, sure, like, yeah, they're doing it's not exactly a Prius, but they're doing what, maybe 1,000 miles a year?
Yeah.
Maximum?
Yeah.
Like that's a strong maximum.
Yeah.
You know, and the government's considering useful life of a vehicle and its emissions components like 80,000 to 150,000 miles.
Yeah.
So they have all the data as to how much they pollute, and you know, a drag and drive car driving 1,000 miles.
Ain't much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably the most that car will be driven all year.
Yeah. You think about a car that exclusively just runs on the drag strip too. That's going to be significantly less than that.
And you know, I don't have all the answers. You know, there are, like, we have been able to make 900 rear-wheel horsepower on the Shelby GT500, and we've been able to go through the emissions lab and pass, and then go on the chassis dyno and make over 900 rear-wheel horsepower. Like, compliance and performance, you know, they can live together. Like, the technology exists. And I think for, you know, big companies, mass production, you know, those, and I'll group ourselves into that area because we do a lot of volume in certain categories, right? We'll sell hundreds per year, sometimes as many as 1,000 per year. So we need to have, you know, strong compliance. Yeah, the technology exists. You know, I think it's something we should be mindful of. But, you know, for the small shop building a couple cars a year for customers, they also need to be able to do what they love and do what people want. And I think compliance is not one size fits all. I think it needs to be, you know, appropriate for the person compliant. It doesn't need to be a burden, is what I'm saying.
That makes sense. On another note, I kind of want to talk a little bit about product development, more so on the sourcing side, right? Because like right now, a hot topic, again, if we look at this administration as a whole, we're talking about tariffs. We're talking about China versus American made and all that. Where does VMP as a whole kind of settle into that? Are you sourcing internationally, locally? What does that look like?
We're sourcing as much locally and nationally as we can. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it is a really difficult topic. It's near and dear to my heart because, you know, I've developed a lot of friends in the industry, and a lot of our suppliers I have become friends with. They're my colleagues. You know, we'll trade business advice on everything. You know, hey, what are you doing for hiring and employee benefits? You know, hey, what do you see going on with this and that? So it's, you know, it's a very heated topic. Yeah. And I think that, first of all, we need to make manufacturing in America great again. And that starts with people to run the machines. Yeah. Like, we need more getting young people into skilled trades. Everything from, you know, working on cars to running CNC machines. I mean, when you were a kid, you would have loved doing that. Oh, absolutely. And and learning it and being good at it, it pays very well, you know, and we're just not seeing that happen. So it's another thing I'm involved with, bringing engineering students into the industry, specifically engineering students and technicians, bringing them into our industry and like showing them how, like, hey, you don't have to go work for, like, you know, Lockheed Martin and look at a single part of an airplane for your whole career. Right. You can actually, you know, make parts that people really love. So yeah, it starts with more people in America willing to do the jobs. I think the tariff thing has just skyrocketed prices for everything. I hear from all my suppliers, you know, materials going up, and of course everything else, labor, healthcare is going up. Yeah, so the administration just screwed up on that. Like, I'm a big fan of, like, deregulation. They'll let business, you know, do what business does. Right.
That's a tricky one too, though, right? Because like, if you fully deregulate, and let's imagine full deregulation, right? It's like, you're just gonna go where the cheapest thing is. Where's the cheapest thing? China. You know, it's like, but the crazy thing is, and I've seen it firsthand, and I've talked to people on this podcast, which unfortunately some things have been edited out. But I can say that a lot of times some of the stuff overseas is better too. Like, and it depends on the product and, you know, whatever, the sourcing and the vendors and all that. But it's like, obviously we could talk in election cycles and all that stuff, but how do we act locally? How does the average 5, 10, 20 man shop, how do we make stuff here? Is it possible for a smaller scale?
I don't know. That's a really tough question. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I got a local machine shop I use. He's 2-3 employees. I got another one I use that's, you know, 5-6 employees. Like, those are the local decisions I can make, right?
Right. Exactly.
And sometimes he's not the best guy for the job. Yeah.
I think it starts with, like you were saying, that we just got to get some more people into it earlier on, right? We're not going to be able to. Right now, we don't have the workforce to do stuff like that.
I'd be so much richer if I got into machining out of high school.
Well, they don't. So even well, my daughter goes to the same high school I went to, and she's taking a CAD class. She's in metals. She's doing all this stuff. I mean, they had metals, but they didn't have. It's totally different than when I went to school. It's we didn't have a CAD. I mean, we learned typing on computers, but that was about it.
You know, and that's like, it's like a generational problem. Like, we've been outsourcing manufacturing for 20 to 40 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, you look at the biggest companies in the space, they use that to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want to name any names or anything. Yeah.
How about on the engineering development side? We talked about this before the episode a little bit. You have a long to-do list and a lot of ideas and, you know, more ideas and time and all that. How do you decide what you're going to pursue, and how does your team help you?
Oh, man. Self-control. I want to make things better. And like, I see that, like, we still, you know, I'll be real. We have got like 15 employees. We do about $8 million a year in sales. Mm-hmm. And it's been all over the place since COVID, but, you know, the first thing is, like, we've got a website where we sell parts and services. We still work on cars here. They're all lined up behind you in different bays, because it really keeps us in touch with the consumer and the vehicles and what they want and what they're doing. You know, if we want to design a new part for a 2018 Mustang, there's probably going to be one here for an install, you know, in the next month or two. Now, and I say design a new part, maybe update an existing part. So, you know, I have a philosophy. It's like, disrupt your own market, because everybody copies everybody. It happens eventually. And, but you can keep improving your part. If you know, make the right investments in the right places, it's not that hard to do. And if you care. So, you know, our product design and engineering workload is really spread across updating existing parts and doing new parts and components. And, like, we have a small team. It's about 3 or 4 people usually. And, you know, we release, I don't even really know, 10 to 15 new parts a year.
Okay.
Some of those parts are really small. It might be a pulley or something. It might be a whole big assembly. But and we're also updating existing parts. And, you know, we do that through a very organized process of, you know, scope of work, an idea, all the documentation to go with that idea, and then an actual design task. And then I'm guilty of taking too long for things, because I like to just look at stuff and think about it. And sometimes it's just sleeping on it. Sometimes it's letting it simmer for a couple weeks or a month.
Yeah.
I'll talk to different people, be like, what design considerations do you think? I don't really call them that, because, you know, hey, Bob, what design considerations do you think, or, you know, I should take into account with this part? Now it's like, hey, what are you seeing with this? What's it doing? You know, what problems are you having? And like we recently found some part we released doesn't fit some Ford Performance oil separator. It's like, well, if that person wants to run our part, we want to be able to sell it to you. Hey, let's make some really nice ABS 3D printed spacers to lift that part up and clear the other component. And that's like a minor design task, we'll end up having still probably 4 to 8 hours in it, but I delegate that to my son who, he's pretty cheap labor at this point.
Yeah. What's been, this is going to be a 2-part one. All right. What is your favorite, like what part did you design that got you the most excited? You were like, this is going to be awesome. And then the second one, what is your number one selling product?
I mean, the supercharging stuff is near and dear to my heart. And like, I don't talk about it nearly enough. But it's a big freaking deal. There's a lot of testing. There's a lot of failures that nobody ever sees. There's a lot of improvements that just get rolled in, through the course of time. So like the Gen 3R supercharger for the GT500s, the older GT500s and older Coyotes, that was like, that was a big one. We really put a lot into that, and I think it was very successful. And you kind of, I know what you're thinking because I kind of answered this for you already. Okay. I always got pissed off at the degas bottle working on the race cars at the track. And like you said, unbolt it and lay it off to the side.
Right.
And like, it's kind of fucking ugly.
Yeah.
It's really effing ugly under the hood.
Yeah.
I guess coming from the older cars, they at least had the black textured top, but the newer ones are just all clear.
Right.
So we made one of those last year, and we took our time with the design, did a lot of test fitting. Like anytime I make something for the first time, I'm like really cautious because I'm like, what do I just not know yet?
Right.
And the same thing with tuning. So took us a good 6 to 8 months to bring that one to market. And it freaking was a hit.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm like, crap. I think we released it in August. We sold a bunch of them. We got more in, thankfully, shipped a bunch of them before the end of the year. But in that process, I'm like, I got to design these for other cars. So the S197, the F150, and then those are basically they're the tooling's paid for, parts are on order, and then we just have to finish the design for this one. And this will be the most complicated because it's going to have a supercharger reservoir too. So we're in the degas bottle business. And I justify it because it's under the hood, and you can change your supercharger pulley easier or work on your car more easily with our parts installed. It's got a functional and a cosmetic benefit.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, yeah, I did see it. It looks really good. So, yeah.
Touch on the trucks a little bit. We were talking about that before the show as well.
So, yeah, I'd like to think we're an early adopter in the truck racing space. We got a 16 F-150 back in 16 and supercharged it. And that's when we were working a lot with Roush still. And it was a hoot. And then you fast forward to the turbo short bed, supercharger and turbocharger short bed thing that's going on right now with the Gen 3s and Gen 4s. I think they just got better with the 10R80s. And
are you guys seeing any issues with the 10R80? Because I get mixed reviews. People love them or they hate them. And I feel like you either get one that works well or you get one that doesn't work well.
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah? Okay.
I mean, the clutches came out of this thing looking smoked. And probably wouldn't have lasted much longer, right? But we only had a couple track passes in the low 9s.
Right.
So we upgraded it, and it's kind of a bitch. It's come out once already to have something reworked, and it's still kind of finicky, but it mostly works. So we drive it.
Okay.
Shit's getting more complicated.
Oh, yeah.
This is harder than ever to do and more competitive than ever. So think about that when visiting your local performance shop. You know, one of the best things that I think a customer can do is realize it's a journey. And by that, you know, we're going to deliver you what you want, but realize that a 700-800 rear wheel horsepower Mustang with a supercharger bolted on is as good as a daily driver. If you walk in and say, I want a 1,000 rear wheel horsepower car, and you think you're going to like daily drive that, never pop the hood, you know, then you're like living in a dream world. Just have like realistic expectations. And I want that customer to come in, you know, start out, do some bolt-ons, intakes, tuning, enjoy the car, step up to a supercharger, and then, you know, kind of go on the journey of going further and further. Like, just don't try to fast forward to the front. There's things you need to learn.
Yeah.
Number one, how to drive. You know, number two, how to listen to the car. And then how to do like, you know, minor maintenance to the car. You got a 1,000 rear wheel horsepower car. It's going to need plugs more often. The fuel really, really matters.
Yeah.
You know, if
Real
it's
quick, we're just losing you over here.
Oh yeah.
Just a little closer.
Yeah.
You just slid away on me.
Yeah. Fuel, quality, belts, you know, regular maintenance like plugs, you know, and you're going to probably run on the stock motor for a while at that power level, but you're going to want to build a motor in the future. And
okay, so things are more competitive than ever. They're harder to do than ever. This is a two-part question. Are you on the cutting edge, the, you know, front lines? And two, how do you stay there if you are?
Oh man. So like, yes, we are. And I guess if I don't know, I don't just talk about myself. If anything, I want to provide a little bit of value and give some advice. So, you know, do the things, right? Modify the cars. So we have shop cars for every new major generation, 24 Mustangs sitting here, you know, 2020 Shelby sitting out there, and F-150s and other generations of Mustangs scattered all over between employees and shop cars. And then there's like, I guess what I've learned, right, is you can't just be in your own little world. And I'm gonna plug SEMA here again, because, you know, I think they do a lot of things well. I'm going to talk about ADAS and some of the upcoming stuff. You know, we've been seeing this for, I don't want to say a good 5 years now. You know, on the GM side, you got Global B, which was locked for really long time. You know, and even the Ford MG1 was locked for, and you know, the new Mustang was locked for, gosh, what, a year and a half. And the trucks were sort of locked since 21, but there were ways around it, but there were really a lot of holes in support. We're in a space right now here in early 2026 where a lot of stuff is unlocked, and we can do a lot with these cars, but there are hurdles, and the best way to see those hurdles is look at government legislation, government rules. So one of the things SEMA's working on is these various forms of ADAS that are being mandated for 2029. And the big one is automatic emergency braking. Ugh. It's required to be there. I just heard you.
Yeah.
And you rode course too. So I know, tell me what you know about this.
Well, it's good to turn off if you're going to cut in and out of traffic a little bit. Cause when it, when it comes on, it can throw you for, it's definitely shocking.
It got me good the other day. I was cutting up a little bit I was running late to somewhere or whatever. And as I was passing a semi, it's like, oh, and brake. I'm like, forgot to turn that off.
I wish there was a way, like, I understand it, and for your average, well, first of all, we're just going to end up with people that don't know how to drive too. That's going to be a problem, right? So like you guys
have a lot of them down here.
Yeah. We've driven in Florida for a while. We thought it was bad back home, but it's pretty bad. Anyway, I wish they'd just make it a way where you could turn it off and just leave it off. having to turn it off each time or make it to where you got to have it on all, or maybe not even let you turn it off, that's going to be a problem.
I mean, right? Like individual choice is a huge
Correct.
thing.
Yep.
And we wanted choice, whether we had an ICE car or an electric car, and electric cars were forced upon us, and look where that went.
Yep.
And same thing with that. Yeah. And like, there's very real world use cases. The first thing is emergency vehicles. And really, if there's an emergency and you're trying to do something with your vehicle, it could be plow snow so you can leave your house. And, and I say that like, being able to have transportation if there's an emergency, you need to go to the hospital, something like that is important. And like, there's currently no provision in the law for basic things like snow plows and shit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy to think. I didn't even think about snow plows.
And so SEMA has been on the front lines of talking about that, studying it, talking about it, and like, first of all, they make an ADAS calibration lab available to the aftermarket in Detroit. And all you have to do is book time for it.
We've had them on the show.
We had Ben, what's his name?
Ben Kaminsky.
Yeah.
Kaminsky, yeah.
That's
Great.
a very impressive facility.
Yeah.
Episode
Yeah.
113, I think.
Any SEMA member company can go and use that facility. So there's that, but like clearly the law needs to be amended with some, exclusions for emergency use, racing use. And these new cars are coming out of the factory. Incredible machines. The new Dark Horse SC, the new Ford GTD. And like, as much as the GTD is a low production like race car, it's still certified as a on-road vehicle.
Right.
It's insane. Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday with Kelly Aiken. It's like, it's kind of incredible that that's street legal.
Yeah. But in 2029, all those vehicles have got to come with automatic emergency braking. So how do you, follow somebody into a corner?
Right.
At Road Atlanta or Sebring at a racetrack,
right.
And that has to be figured out. And I the automakers, we've seen them succumb to the government before with the electric vehicle mandates. So I don't trust them. They're good at producing cars and making money and making their shareholders happy.
What? Jim Farley loves making his shareholders happy? That's crazy.
And eating cams too, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's we made a comparison him to Trump the other day. It was like, dude, just let's stop with the talking so much.
Yeah. But hey, we need those people doing those things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where SEMA is looking out for the aftermarket's interest with this ADAS, AEB mess.
Well, I got a question for you on the tuning side of things. When they cracked the tuning on these cars here, how did that? So I watched the video with Jared and Rob Shoemaker. They had made an announcement or whatever. When SET does something like, do they reach out to all of you guys, or do they? How does that? Just certain people get to work with them, and then they get access to it first, or do they just hand it out after that?
There's various levels of secrecy at these different tuning companies. I mean, having the relationship with the engineers and your rep, and like, it's really kind of a small industry.
Right.
We've all been doing this. There's the OGs that have been doing this forever. And like, I can't believe, but I am one now. And I mean, they need people providing, engineering feedback and stuff. That particular one was super top secret till like a week or two before it hit.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah. And some of this stuff needs to be, not everybody thinks you should modify your vehicle or be able to modify your vehicle, but
craziness.
Yeah. I think we need to do it responsibly. But we need to be able to do it.
Okay.
What about this generation, right? Because this is kind of like, we were talking about this yesterday. It's like the S550 V2, right? Like, is there anything remarkable or special about this? Because this is the Gen 4 Coyote in these two, right?
Yeah. And really, the Gen 4 Coyote didn't change as much as it did, when F-150 went Gen 4. same cylinder head surface, same stuff bolts on. You know, for better or for worse, Ford's been trying to appeal more and more to the wine and cheese crowd, you know, whether it be Germans, the market that would buy a German car normally. And,
right.
You know, I'm gonna say they did a good job at, you know, making it a nicer car. It's quieter, it's smoother, handles good, you know. The quality of the engine and drivetrain. I mean, we're making 900 robo horsepower on a stock bottom end.
Yeah.
A lot of refinement from 15 years in the Coyote game.
Right.
So
are you impressed with what I heard you mention the SC with the GTD. I'm not, like, I think it's all cool. I'm not overly impressed with how things are going. Do you have any thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I hate the name.
Yeah.
You know, I wrote up a Facebook post about it. I love the technology, love the performance, you know, love that. I mean, it should be around $100,000, right?
Yeah.
Love that it's accessible. I mean, it's expensive, but it's accessible. You know, we're going to modify and tune them. What are your thoughts on the new Dark Horse?
I think that is mostly the name is a thing. Like, there's some cooler things. There's some things I wish they'd bring back. You know, they had some, like, I don't like the Maverick truck. Like, that was a weird deal. Not that I don't like the truck. I don't like the naming. It was
it's
you
such
know,
a Maverick.
I know the Mach-E could have been something different. I don't know. They could bring back the Torino. I mean, there's things that they could do that, and maybe they have some of those things in the works.
You know what? I don't hate them. Like, granted, the Mach-E shouldn't have probably been called a Mustang, but I don't exactly hate it as much. The SC, like, I was like, well, that's kind of stupid, but I don't hate it the more it sits on me. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, there's definitely like way cooler names they could have used, but
I'm not saying that I hate it. I'm just not wowed, I guess, maybe.
Do you think you're just getting old?
That could be it. It's old and bitter.
Well, no, like it's like his first time seeing a GTD. He's like, well, I'm not impressed. Like, I'm impressed, but not really.
I wasn't, because for that price point, I was expecting something like the Ford GT, right? Like, I grew up idolizing that car. So when the GTD comes out and it looks like an S650 Mustang, I mean, it's not. It's very impressive in person. But it's got, you know, when I sat inside and it felt like an S650, and I look at the mirrors and their S650 mirrors and things like that are just... It was whatever.
Well, it wasn't a Challenger mirror, at least, because I know how much you fucking love those.
I don't like Dodge mirrors at all.
So, side note, did you also count how many extra tunes you'd have to sell to afford the payment on a Ford GT?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And it's not uncommon knowledge. I actually have an allocation. I don't know that I am going to fulfill it. I don't really know. I've had them push it out, but
hold on, we could get a million subscribers this year, and I'll get you one for Christmas.
One of the reasons I pushed it out. We'll see what happens. It's very expensive.
A GTD.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
I'd almost rather get an 05, 06 Ford GT, which, again, I know they don't perform as well as that.
They got up there. I think they're in the 500,000-600,000s now.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I think we're all spoiled because, like, we know what we can do with these cars, just bolting on parts from the aftermarket.
Right.
And, you know, like, you look at the kits that are coming out from, like, Whipple now and stuff like that, and the amount of, like, premium features and content that are in there. 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't like that, right? It was the kit installs, really 20 years ago, the kit installs with a factory throttle body. It uses a tiny little heat exchanger, tiny little pump. And then, you know, we all started really competing with each other. And it's like, well, mine's going to come with a dual fan heat exchanger, and mine's going to come with a bigger throttle body. And like, yeah, the amount of engineering and content in a supercharger kit today is pretty insane.
Yeah.
And the results, you know, speak for that. They make more than Dark Horse SC on a GT.
Yeah.
Well, then you also got the Shelby's, basically it's just a 5.0 with a Whipple, and they're selling them for like $200,000 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just at RTR last week, and they've got an RTR Spec 5 that fits right in that segment.
Dude, those things are so cool. Like, honestly, like, again, if we're looking at, if I had money to blow, if I was looking at Shelby versus RTRs, I would go all day long. Personally.
I think you're out of the Shelby demographic.
That's what I'm saying. Like the Shelby demographic is...
You make fun of me for being old. I'm also probably out of the Shelby demographic, although I own one. But I got that car
that was
for
the
what
last
it was.
true Shelby. Like, hopefully
Well, that was a Ford. That was a Ford production car.
I don't know. Hopefully I'm not cockeying on anything you're affiliated with or whatever, but it's just like, I don't know, man. Like the Super Snake is awesome, but it's a $220,000 car or whatever it is. Like it's not even attainable.
And like, I know that's what a lot of people go back to is like attainable performance. And I think that's important. But I also think the Halo cars, like the fact that Shelby built that car and probably to some degree inspired RTR to build that car.
Oh, I'm sure of it.
And how many other Hennessy's and then all the other smaller car builders below that. Yeah. And I can even so I don't know. I think competition is good. I think ideas are good. The money thing, the stuff's expensive. It sucks.
Yeah.
I think it goes in tiers for me, right? Like, for example, like the GTD, like people are going to clown the price. I think it's amazing what they've done with that car. So that's like, even though it's expensive, I'm like, all right, cool. Same thing with the GT500. Whenever people are like, oh, I'm not paying $100,000 for a Mustang. I'm like, dude, that is a supercar and a Mustang body.
Yeah.
Like when it came out, we had one of the first ones in the country to join us on a road rally. Drove it across the country. He was breaking miles on the rally, and he's over there, driving on the track with McLarens and stuff. I'm like, that's wicked. Like, it's cool.
A DCT and a Mustang, freaking radial pinned rotors, all the tech that comes in those things. Magna Ride. Like
my GT500 is one of my favorite cars I've ever had. That thing is...
If you had a Lamborghini body on top of that car with all the technology it is and the cushiness of the seats and everything, that'd be a $400,000 Lamborghini, but it's a $100,000 Mustang.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what some of the stuff that Ford's good at putting a lot of engineering into vehicles and, amortizing the cost out of that at scale, right? I mean, that's what the company was founded on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I got to give them props for doing that. And I think Ford has the best engineered American cars.
I would agree with that.
Well,
the C8 and the ZR1 and all that stuff is pretty badass.
We are seeing Chevy do some wicked stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you had any of the engineers from either of those companies swap roles, I think they'd end up with really similar. You got so much talented engineering between the two.
So the question is, what are we going to do about Stellantis?
Well, they're bringing SRT back, like officially. Yeah. Like last week, I think it was announced that they're bringing SRT back, and we'll see what comes out of that.
So I saw the new TRX, and they upped the horsepower on that, and I heard they did that with just camshaft and tuning. It's the same supercharger, which is impressive.
I don't know. I think they had some mismanagement there for a while, so let's see if they can.
Oh, they definitely did.
Yeah.
No, that guy was a clown.
Yeah.
They were on the wrong train. The electric car, small displacement, fuel efficient train.
You know what they need? They need to bring back the neon. No, seriously, like an SRT4. Like they need to, if they're going to try to disrupt the markets, just stop. Okay. I'm going to vent for a second here.
Oh yeah. Let's go.
Yeah. Why are we doing a 2-door electric coupe? Can you explain to me that? Why? You're fighting a market that doesn't exist. Nobody does a 2-door electric coupe. You got the Audi e-tron, sure, but that's it. And those are half price right now.
I mean, electric cars are largely utilitarian. If you can get some performance out of them, cool. But
give me a 4-door. Give me And they also by the way, they're releasing the 4-door second. They went 2-door, then 4-door. And then they're doing. Dude, it is such a mismanaged, and I grew up Mopar. I'm a Mopar boy. That is a mismanaged cluster. And honestly, I test drove one of them. They're pretty cool, but that's not the market.
Yeah, right. I mean, create a segment where there is none, and I think that's really been Ford's success for years and years, as they've created that segment and stayed in it.
Yeah. Well, any aspirations of branching out into anything else?
Yeah, what's next for you?
We do a little bit of Dodge and Chevy stuff now.
Okay.
We're doing more and more of it. It goes back to our anything we do, we want to add a lot of value, have a better mousetrap, better solution. Mm-hmm. And that comes in a lot of different forms. It can be engineering, it can be, tuning, which really tuning is engineering, but it's really kind of talked about in its own way. It can be customer service, customer experience. So like when we build a car for a customer, we're upfront about what it costs and what you're going to get, and we deliver on it.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is like there's space for the basics, even in the other segments, from a service standpoint.
Okay.
Do you want to pop to usual 3 and then do a Minnesota goodbye?
Sure. All right. So at the end of every episode, we like to ask our guests to pick 3 cars. I need a track car, a daily driver, and a show car. You have an unlimited budget. You build what you want.
God.
I got that thinking swivel going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most you've seen me move. Track car, daily driver, and then what was the other one?
Show car.
Show car.
That's right. Drink it.
Okay. Shelby carbon fiber track pack, because that will impress people at the show.
Okay.
And a daily driver, 4-door supercharged F-150, and then a track car, a supercharged Mustang.
Okay.
Which
Is
Mustang?
this straight?
Any contract.
Any track you want.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say drag racing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, like you're talking like one of these? Or
Yeah, I like one of these.
Okay, so
You
Gen
can
4.
beat a lot of people and have a lot of fun and just put tires on it, and
Sweet.
fuel in it.
Do you ever get any? So is it mostly always single cabs? You ever get any extended cabs or crew cabs? Because
We do.
okay. Because we talked about having bunches of kids. So when I do one, I'm probably going to do an extended cab because I want to
Okay.
be able to have a back seat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. My original truck that I raced a lot was a 4-door, and then one of the guys working for us at the time had a 2-door. So we were,
okay.
at the same power level. We had Gen 2 Coyotes, making about 700 of the tire. Same power level. I mean, the regular cab was like a second faster. It was pretty sick.
Okay.
The mile per hour difference from less drag and less weight.
Yeah.
Pretty fucking sick.
I
Sorry.
bet. No, that's right.
Well, sweet. On that note, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on our website. Well, no, you can find VMPperformance.com is our website. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, regular social channels.
Sure.
So
Anything else that we missed before we wrap up?
Oh, no, I think we had some good conversations.
We'll be back for a round 2.
Any cool parts coming down the pipe that you want to talk about at all, or you don't have to?
We have delved into the world of air to water supercharging for other power adders, mainly turbos, and you could use it with a centrifugal, but I would do a turbo. If you want a blower, I would do a positive displacement style blower. And if you're not going to do, then turbo is really the other option. So,
Okay.
We've got all this great technology and parts, and we brought it together in our Leviathan intake system. And we've actually got a lot of builds going on right now using that system. So it's essentially a supercharged lower intake. You can bolt a supercharger to it. But we make what I call a turbo hat that allows you to put a throttle body on it and then, force feeded air from a turbo.
So could you do that with one of your blowers? Could you just pull the top off and slap that stuff on there, or?
Yeah. A
Yeah.
couple people have done that. So,
Okay.
the idea is not new.
Right.
And I say that like you could take the rotors out of that blower, but we made kind of a more compact, system that does that job better.
Okay.
And we're going to expand that offering. Currently it's only for Coyote. We're looking at a lot more offerings, and that's where some of the other brands may come in.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm glad we finally made this happen. Dan, thanks for existing, and we'll see y'all next time.